My wife cheated on me with her boss, and now she's demanding half of our $1.2 million house and $350, $0 in savings, everything I worked for, while secretly planning to sell my inheritance to cover her expenses. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife cheated on me with her boss, and now she's demanding half of everything we worked for. Our $1.2 million house, $350, $0 in savings, everything I built from the ground up. But here I am, trying to make sense of it all, trying to figure out how someone I trusted so completely could turn out to be such a damn snake. It all started about 6 months ago. Things felt off, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Had always been a little bitchy when she was stressed, but she was also more distant than usual. She'd come home late from work, say. She was just catching up on projects, but I could tell she was hiding something. She'd get defensive if I asked about her day, snap at me for no reason. Little things, really, but enough to make me suspicious. One day, I decided to do a little digging. I'd always been the type to trust, but I also knew better than to ignore my gut. I checked her phone, and that's when I saw it, texts from her boss, Mark, that weren't exactly professional. They were flirty, suggestive even. I saw a message where she called him hot and joked about needing a real man, and another where she said she was so exhausted but couldn't wait to see him. My stomach sank. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I watched her, looked for patterns. She became more secretive, locking her phone, hiding her messages. I even caught her sneaking out late at night once, looking nervous as hell. That's when I knew I had to do something. I wasn't going to be the guy who gets by some affair and just accepts it. Not me. The worst part, she kept lying. When I asked her about her late nights and the strange texts, she'd laugh it off, call me paranoid. "You're overreacting, Jason," she'd say, rolling her eyes. "You're just insecure, Mark's just a boss, nothing's going on." But I knew better. I could see her guilty as hell trying to cover her tracks. Still, I didn't want to jump to conclusions without evidence. I needed proof, something concrete I could confront her with. Then one night I found it. I was at home going through our bank statements and I noticed a strange transfer 15-0 to an account I didn't recognize. I looked closer and it was from 's phone. My heart started pounding. I knew that money wasn't just a bonus or a gift, it was too much for that. I logged into her email and there it was, an email from Mark confirming a secret meeting. They'd been seeing each other outside of work, probably for months. That was the moment everything shattered. I felt numb, then furious. How could she lie to me so blatantly? How could she betray everything we built? I felt a mix of disbelief and rage that I'd never experienced before. I was furious at her, but also at myself for not noticing sooner, for being so blind. I'd always thought was loyal that she loved me. Turns out she loved her fancy job, her boss, and her own selfish needs more. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying everything, trying to understand how she could do this to me. I thought about our home, our plans, the future we'd talked about. All of it felt like it was crumbling inside me. I was hurt, betrayed, and honestly, I was starting to feel like a fool for trusting her at all. But I also knew I had to decide what to do next. I couldn't let her get away with this. I was starting to see that if I didn't act now, I might lose everything. My house, my savings, my dignity. That's when I started to plan. I wasn't just going to confront her and hope for the best. No, I wanted to hit her where it hurts, financially, emotionally, everything. I'd worked too hard for that house, and those savings to just give her half because she decided to cheat and lie her way through it. I was going to take control, get my revenge, and make sure she paid for what she did. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that some people only understand strength, especially when they've been caught red-handed. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became that wasn't just a little unfaithful, she was a damn snake. She lied about everything, played the victim when I confronted her, and kept spinning her stories like she was some innocent victim in her own web of deceit. She's always been good at lying, that bitch, twisting words, pretending she's the victim and making me feel like I was the crazy one. But I wasn't falling for it anymore. I saw right through her. One thing that really pushed me over the edge was discovering her plans to sell my inheritance. Yeah, I inherited a decent chunk of money from my grandmother a few years back. It's not massive, but it's enough to give me some security. I kept it tucked away, thinking it was for a rainy day or to invest. Turns out, had been secretly planning to sell that inheritance to cover her expenses, her little secret stash to keep her. Affair hidden, that was the final straw. I remembered the day I found out. I was at work and I got a call from my lawyer, Mark. Coincidence, right? He told me had contacted him asking about transferring ownership of some property. I was stunned. I immediately logged into my bank account, checked the property records, and sure enough was trying to transfer the deed into her name. I felt like I'd been punched again. That inheritance was mine, and she was planning to take it just to keep her lies afloat. That's when I decided I had to act fast. I couldn't let her get away with this. I started by calling my lawyer, telling him to put a freeze on everything. No transfers, no sales, nothing. I also started digging into our finances more thoroughly. I needed to know exactly what she was up to, how deep this rabbit hole went. Turns out she'd been secretly draining our savings, moving money around, trying to hide her tracks. She'd even gone as far as opening new accounts in her name, trying to hide her assets. I felt sick. All those years I worked my ass off. Late nights, weekends, sacrifices, just to build a life that she was planning to destroy behind my back. I was furious at her greed, but more than that, I was hurt. How could she betray me like this? How could she lie so effortlessly? And for what? A few nights with her boss, Mark. That's all she cared about, her own selfish pleasure, her career, her little affair. I decided I needed evidence. I set up some hidden cameras in our house, especially around her phone and her computer. I wanted to catch her in the act, or at least get proof of her plans. It wasn't about spying. I just needed to protect myself, to gather what I needed to confront her with undeniable proof. I also contacted a private investigator just in case I needed more solid evidence. I wasn't going to be caught off guard again. Meanwhile, was acting even more bitchy and entitled. She'd throw fits, complain about how I was ruining her life, accusing me of being paranoid. She'd say, "You're overreacting, Jason. You're just jealous because I have a good job and a future." She kept lying, insisting she loved me, that she was just stressed, that Mark was just a friend, but I knew better. I saw her texts, her secret meetings, the way she avoided my eyes when I asked her about her whereabouts. She was caught and she knew it. One night I finally confronted her directly. I told her I knew everything about the affair, her plans to sell my inheritance, the money she'd been siphoning off. Her face went pale, but she tried to deny it at first. Then when I showed her the proof, screenshots, bank transfers, her own emails, her entire facade cracked. She started crying, blubbering about how she was just stressed, how Mark was just a distraction, how she didn't mean to hurt me. Bullshit. I saw through her lies faster than I ever thought possible. That confrontation was intense. I felt a rush of anger I'd never experienced before. I told her she was done with her lies, her manipulations, her betrayal. I told her that I wasn't going to let her walk away with half of everything I'd worked for, that I'd fight her in court if I had to. I was done being the naive husband who trusted blindly. No more. From this moment on, I was taking control. I knew I had to stay calm, but inside I was boiling. I was hurt, betrayed, humiliated. All the nights I spent working late trying to give her a good life, and she was out screwing her boss, planning to leave me with nothing. It was a slap in the face. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, but I also knew I couldn't let her win. I had to fight for what was mine, for my dignity and for my future. I wasn't going down without a fight. After that confrontation, everything changed. Bitchy attitude only got worse, but I was done playing nice. I started taking serious steps. I hired a lawyer, one who specialized in property and divorce cases, and made it clear I wasn't giving her a damn thing without a fight. I also contacted a financial advisor to help me track down every penny she'd tried to hide or siphon off. I wasn't just going to let her take half the house and savings. I was going to make sure she paid for her lies and betrayal. Meanwhile's behavior grew more manipulative. She'd throw tantrums, accuse me of controlling her, and try to guilt-trip me into backing down. "You're ruining my life," she'd whine with that fake bitchy smile. She kept insisting she loved me, that she'd never cheat if I just understood her stress. Yeah, right. I saw right through her bullshit now. She was just trying to wear me down, to make me feel guilty so I'd back off. But I wasn't falling for that anymore. I had the proof, and I was ready to fight for what was mine. One night I found her in the bedroom, packing a bag. I asked what she was doing, and she snapped at me. "I'm leaving, Jason. I've had enough of your paranoia. I'm sick of your accusations." That's when I lost it. I told her if she left, she'd never see a penny of the house or the savings. She'd be lucky if she got anything. She sneered. "You're just jealous because I'm leaving with a better life. You're too insecure to handle a real woman." That was the moment I realized her sense of entitlement was through the roof. She thought she could just walk away with my money and my house like she was entitled to it. I called the lawyer again that night. We drafted a temporary restraining order to prevent her from selling or transferring any assets. I also made sure to document everything: her secret meetings, her attempts to transfer property, her draining our accounts. I wanted everything on record. I knew she was planning to sell my inheritance, and I had to stop her before she could do it. I also started secretly recording her conversations, just in case she'd try to deny anything later. Then things escalated. One morning I woke up to find gone. No note, no explanation, just an empty house and a mess in her closet. I called her, but she wouldn't answer. I was furious. She'd left trying to run away from her mess, but I wasn't about to let her get away that easily. I contacted her boss, Mark, directly. I told him I knew everything about their affair, her plans, her attempts to steal my inheritance. He tried to deny it at first, but I had the proof. I told him I'd see him in court if he didn't back off. That day, I also discovered she'd already started selling some of her jewelry, trying to liquidate assets. Secretly, I knew I had to act fast. I filed for divorce, asked for full custody of the house, and demanded she be held accountable for her actions. I also made it clear I wasn't going to let her walk away with a dime of what I built unless she faced the consequences. My lawyer warned me that she might try to manipulate the situation, but I was prepared. I had the evidence, the legal backing, and the resolve to fight. Honestly, I felt a mix of relief and rage. Relief that I finally knew the truth, and rage that she could do this to me after all we'd been through. I kept replaying everything: her lies, her betrayal, her greed. It was like she'd turned into a different person overnight. I'd trusted her, loved her, and she repaid me by screwing around with her boss and planning to take my inheritance. I'd been a fool to believe she was loyal. Now I was determined to make her pay, to get back what she tried to steal, and to rebuild my life without her. I'm not gonna lie, it hurts. It hurts more than I can say, but I also feel stronger now. I realized I was letting her manipulate me, but no more. I've started the process of reclaiming what's mine and setting boundaries. I've learned that some people are just selfish, entitled, and willing to destroy everything for their own benefit. The worst part: I still love her, or at least I did. But love doesn't mean sacrificing everything. Sometimes it means walking away. And that's what I'm doing now, walking away from a betrayal that almost broke me. By the time I got the divorce papers filed and the legal wheels turning, was nowhere to be found. She'd vanished like a ghost, probably trying to hide out, maybe planning her next move. I knew she was still scheming, probably trying to sell off whatever she could before I caught her. I kept my head clear, but inside I was boiling. I couldn't let her get away with this, not after everything she'd done. Then the real game started. I hired a private investigator to track her down. I needed to know where she was, what she was doing, and whether she was trying to sell my inheritance behind my back. Turns out, she was holed up in a fancy hotel downtown, meeting with Mark, her boss. I got the reports, photos, videos, everything. She was still sneaking around, still lying, still planning to screw me over. That made me even angrier. She was playing the victim, crying about how I was controlling her, but meanwhile, she was out screwing her boss and plotting to take everything I had. I also found out she'd been trying to sell some of her jewelry and expensive clothes, things she never even wore anymore. She hid a bunch of cash, too. I wasn't about to let her liquidate what was left of my assets. I had already put a freeze on all accounts, but I knew she'd find a way to get around it if I wasn't careful. That's when I decided to get some real leverage. I went to the bank, changed all the passwords, and made sure she couldn't access anything without my approval. I also hired a forensic accountant to dig into her financials and find every dollar she'd hidden or moved. Meanwhile, I was dealing with the emotional fallout. Every time I thought I was over the worst, something else would come up. I'd see her in my mind's eye. That bitchy smirk, her lies, her betrayal. It was like a punch to the gut every time. I felt humiliated, betrayed, and furious. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I could have been so blind. I'd always trusted her, and now I realized she'd been lying to me from day one. That hurt worse than anything. But I also knew I had to stay strong. I couldn't let her see me break. One night I got a call from my lawyer, was trying to sell the house, my house, without my consent. I was stunned. That house was my biggest investment, the symbol of everything I'd worked for. If she sold it, I'd be left with nothing. I immediately filed an emergency court order to stop her. I told the judge that this was an act of fraud, and I presented all my evidence, proof of her plans, her transfers, her attempts to sell assets. The judge granted the order, and I felt a small sense of relief. At least I had some control back, but wasn't done. She sent me a nasty text, accusing me of being controlling and jealous, saying I was ruining her life. She claimed she was just trying to start fresh after the stress of her job and her affair. Yeah, right, I knew better. I knew she was just trying to cover her tracks, to manipulate the situation. I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. I told her that I was done playing her game and that she'd face the consequences if she kept trying to screw me over. Throughout all this, I kept my focus on the legal side. I worked closely with my lawyer, making sure everything was documented. I also started gathering witnesses, friends who knew about her behavior, her boss's involvement, her attempts to hide assets. I wanted to be prepared for the worst, because I knew she'd try to spin things in court. I wasn't going down without a fight. I was determined to get what was owed to me and to make her pay for the betrayal. Honestly, I'm exhausted. This whole thing has drained me emotionally and financially. I've had sleepless nights, countless arguments with my lawyer, and moments where I just wanted to give up. But I kept pushing. I refused to let her ruin me, to walk away with my house, my savings, and my inheritance like she's entitled to it. I realized I had to be tougher, smarter, more ruthless if I wanted to win this battle. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about money, it's about respect. About standing up for myself after she tried to destroy everything I built. And I'm not done fighting yet. By now, I'd spent months fighting her, and honestly, it felt like I was in some kind of war. Every day brought new surprises, new lies from or new attempts to manipulate the situation. She kept insisting she was the victim, that I was controlling her, that she deserved half of everything because she suffered through the stress of her job and the affair. The audacity. She'd cry, throw tantrums, and try to guilt me into backing down, but I'd had enough of her bullshit. I finally got a court date scheduled. The judge was supposed to hear all the evidence I had collected, proof of her affair, her attempts to sell assets, her secret transfers. I stayed up nights preparing my case, making sure every detail was documented. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just some naive husband. I was serious. I was ready to fight for every dollar, every inch of that house, every piece of my inheritance. I knew she'd try to spin it as a divorce, but I was determined to hold her accountable. Meanwhile, was getting more aggressive. She hired her own lawyer, of course, trying to turn things around and paint herself as the victim. She claimed I was abusive, controlling, and that I'd been emotionally manipulating her all along. That's when I snapped. I told her lawyer that was the one who had been sneaking around, lying and planning to steal from me. I handed over all my evidence, texts, emails, bank transfers, witness statements. I was ready for the fight. I told her lawyer, let be clear, she's the one who betrayed her vows, not me. I want justice. The day of the hearing was intense. Showed up looking frantic, trying to act innocent, but I saw through her. The judge listened to both sides, and I laid out everything. How she'd been planning to sell my inheritance, drain our savings, and even transfer the house into her name. I had everything documented, every proof of her lies. When I finished's lawyer tried to spin her story, but the judge wasn't buying it. The evidence was too clear. The judge ordered a temporary injunction. She couldn't sell or transfer any assets until the final ruling. That was a huge win for me, but wasn't giving up. After the hearing, she stormed out, cursing and screaming about how I was ruining her life. I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief that I finally had some legal protection, but anger at her audacity to think she could walk away with everything after betraying me so badly. I knew this was just the beginning. She tried to manipulate things, tried to twist the story, but I was prepared. I had the evidence, the law on my side, and a resolve that wouldn't back down. In the days that followed, I kept working with my lawyer. We negotiated some agreements, but I made it clear I wasn't going to settle for less than what I deserved: full custody of the house, the savings, and a fair division of assets. Kept trying to call me, begging, crying, claiming she'd change, but I wasn't buying any of it. I'd learned my lesson. Trust was gone. All I wanted now was to get my life back, to rebuild from the wreckage she left behind. Looking back, I realize how much this whole ordeal changed me. I used to think love and trust were enough, but now I see that sometimes you have to fight for what's right. Betrayal showed me that some people are just selfish, willing to destroy everything for their own benefit. I've learned to be more cautious, more prepared. And I've learned that no matter how much it hurts, standing up for yourself is the only way to survive this kind of betrayal. I'm still in the thick of it, but I know I'll come out stronger on the other side. The final stretch has been the hardest, but also the most revealing. Sitting here now, I realize that this whole nightmare has taught me something fundamental. Trust is fragile, and sometimes, the people you love the most can turn into complete strangers when money and greed get involved. Betrayal cut deep. Seeing her lie, manipulate, and try to steal what I worked so hard for was a punch to the gut. But I also discovered something else: strength I didn't know I had. The court case finally wrapped up last month. The judge ruled in my favor, ordering to pay back what she'd stolen and to relinquish her claim to the house and inheritance. She was furious, of course, screaming and crying about how unfair everything was, but her words only sounded hollow now. I knew she'd try to come back, try to manipulate her way into some kind of settlement, but I was done. I'd fought hard, and I knew I'd won because I refused to let her destroy me. Since then, I've started rebuilding. I've sold off some of the jewelry and assets she tried to liquidate, and I've put the money into a new account, one she can't access. I've also decided to move out of the house, which feels like a huge weight off my shoulders. It's not just about the property, it's about leaving behind the memories of her betrayal and starting fresh. I've found a small apartment nearby, quiet and simple, where I can breathe again and focus on myself. Looking back, I see how much I've grown through all this. I learned to stand up for myself, to be ruthless when it mattered, and most importantly, to trust my instincts. I also learned that some people, no matter how much you love them, are just too selfish to be trusted. Greed and lies cost her everything: her marriage, her career, her reputation. And honestly, I don't feel even a shred of guilt about that. She brought this on herself. As for me, I'm not sure what's next. Maybe I'll find someone who's worth my time, or maybe I'll just focus on building a life I can be proud of, one free of betrayal and lies. I've got a lot to process, but I know one thing for sure: I'm stronger than I ever thought I was. I survived her betrayal, and I'll keep moving forward. That's all I can do now. To anyone out there dealing with similar pain, trust your gut, document everything, and don't be afraid to fight for what's yours. Because in the end, nobody is coming to save you. You've got to do it yourself. And if you do, you'll come out the other side battered but victorious. That's what I've learned. That's what I'll carry with me from now on.